When the temperature drops, the heat begins to rise. At a time of year when many try to escape it, there are some who seek out the freezing cold and embrace it. Because in order to play one of the world's hottest sports, you have to start with a cold sheet of ice. And that's just the beginning. The better you get at this game, the more it rocks. Curling is a sport of skill and strategy, where success depends on a smooth delivery and nerves of steel. Because sometimes the margin of victory is so small, it's measured in millimeters. Tonight on the men's draw, Team USA has their tournament debut on home ice against a seasoned Japanese squad looking to score points early in this international round-robin tournament. Will they have what it takes? Friday night is NBCSN Curling Night in America. NBCSN proudly presents NBCSN Curling Night. About a 3-hour ride north of Minneapolis-St. Paul's in the Twin Cities sits Eveleth, Minnesota. In winter sports, such a touchstone for this community. Home to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. And just down the road from that facility, another one. Home to the sport of curling. It's Curl Masabi, which for the next 7 weeks will host Curling Night in America. Jason Knapp happy to be joined by 8-time U.S. national champion and 2006 Olympic bronze medalist Pete Fenson. Tanith White will join us shortly as well. Here's the format for the NBCSN Curling Night competition that'll carry us through the next couple of months. 4 countries are here: the United States, China, Japan, and Scotland, all ranked at the top 10 in the sport in the world. There'll be men's competition, women's competition, and mixed doubles new to the format this year as it's being added to the next Winter Olympic Games coming up in 2018. Round-robin play for both the men, the women, and the mixed. The team with the most points wins their division, and the nation with the most points will take home the American Cup. It's the men that lead off our coverage. Japan against the United States, skipped by 3-time Olympian John Schuster, essentially Pete playing here in his own backyard.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. Just an hour or so down the road from Duluth, where John and his team live and train. It's got to be very exciting for him to play such an international event this close to home. He's able to have his family, his wife, and his kids here to help support him.
And Pete, John, of course, part of your bronze medal winning squad at the 2006 Olympics in Italy. Skipped the U.S. the last 2 Olympics in Vancouver and Sochi. Just missed making the playoffs, finishing 5th at last year's World Championships. You mentioned the family. It continues to grow. He and wife Sarah welcoming their second son, Logan, to the fold. For more on the skip story, let's check in with our Tanith White.
Thanks, Jason. Well, skip to skip, this U.S. men's team has never lost to the Japanese in international competition. I spoke to the U.S. skip John Schuster before the match. He seemed to be feeling confident, but said this match is as much about analyzing the ice conditions as it is his opponent's strategy. And when I spoke to the Japanese lead, Kosuke Morizumi, about that strategy, he said they plan to play aggressively from start to finish and throw better freezes against this American team. Back to you guys.
Tanith, thanks. It'll be good to have the perspective of the 5-time U.S. national ice dancing champ and 2006 Olympic silver medalist as the Rocks dance on the ice. And Pete, give us some thoughts on this head-to-head skip matchup starting with Team Japan.
So Yusuke Morizumi and his team from Japan are very technically sound. They throw the rock very well, very cleanly. They make a lot of shots. They sweep the rock with effectiveness. The key for them tonight is going to be to eliminate their strategical errors against John Schuster.
And John Schuster and company really gaining some experience now, year 2 of this team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of difference in a team's growth. They played the World Championships last year. They've spent a year, almost 2 years on tour now. They've had some successes. They're really playing the game with a lot of confidence.
The Stone colors, the U.S. will be throwing red rocks, Japan yellow rocks. Japan won the draw to the button, so the Japanese will have the hammer, the last shot advantage. Underway here. The lead for the United States, 25-year-old John Landsteiner. Again, each team, 4 players, throw 2 stones each end, 8 per team per end. And in this format for Curling Night in America, it'll only be an 8-end game.
Yeah, and that's what the players play on tour all season. The 10-end game is only used in championships. So they're accustomed to this length of game. Shouldn't be a problem for them tonight.
Now that we're underway, let's meet Team USA.
John Landsteiner, lead.
Matt Hamilton, second.
Tyler George, third.
John Schuster, skip.
So the first stone for the Americans in play. Here comes the opening stone from the lead from Japan. It's Kosuke Morozumi, the younger brother of the skip of the Japanese team.
So with the hammer in the first end here, the Japanese have elected to throw a corner guard and go right at John Schuster and his team, trying to score early and get the lead.
Again, scoring in curling, a team gets a point for each stone that's closer to the center than the opponent's best stone, and you'd always love to score more than one. That's considered a win in each end. Here's the second for the lead for the United States, John Landsteiner.
Good point there, Jason. So for Schuster now, what they're trying to do is force Japan to take a single point when they have the hammer, and Japan is also trying to make their hammer worth 2. So there's a lot of maneuvering here, especially early in the ends, to set these rocks up in the right places.
See the sweeping from the front end. Matt Hamilton, Tyler George for the United States. Well, we've got a moment. Let's meet the Japanese squad.
Kosuke Morozumi, lead. Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi, second.
Tetsuro Shimizu, third.
Yusuke Morozumi, skip.
This Japan team won silver again at the recent Pacific Asia Championships in Kazakhstan in November. They lost to Korea in the final, 11-7. Underway here against Team USA with the second for Kosuke Morozumi, the lead for Japan.
So Japan, they're electing to throw the out turn, hit, and roll under the corner guard. And the rock actually under curled, so you can see the struggles that they go through early in the game here, trying to get the ice mapped out, get comfortable with the amount of curl and the speed that's in each sheet.
Our first look at the 26-year-old second for John Schuster's rink from Madison, Wisconsin, Matt Hamilton, former World Junior gold medalist in 2008. Again, part of this squad that finished 5th at the Senior Worlds last year in Canada.
Sweeping hard to hold the line here, just trying to sneak by this guard. And once again, same struggles here for Team USA early in the game that we see with Japan. That rock over curling just a little bit and making contact with that center guard.
And you'll see some of the other action from the competition going on the adjoining sheets, but as always at any game, trying to get used to the ice conditions early.
Yeah, that's a key to every game, is for the skips and the teams to pick up on the ice, and as the game progresses, to pick up on the changes in the ice, because as the pebble wears down, things tend to change, speed, curl, and so on.
First from Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi, the second for Japan.
A little bad luck there for the Japanese team, playing the double, actually hitting it, driving it directly back onto another red stone in the back of the 8-foot. So gives John Schuster a chance here to put a little bit more pressure on.
The folks in Eveleth out to support the Stars and Stripes. Team USA underway against Japan. More of Curling Night in America from Eveleth in a moment. NBCSN Curling Night in America is being brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. See car insurance in a whole new light. And by USA Curling, where Olympic dreams begin. Back in Eveleth, opening end of the opening game of Curling Night in America. The Japan against the United States men. And the stone from the third for the Japanese, Tetsuro Shimizu, 27 years old.
Japan here throwing the in-turn hit and roll, trying to come through a small hole, removing the U.S. stone, but still more problems with the ice continue. That rock over curled just a little bit, but they did get the front end open. They have access to shot stone in the top of the 4-foot.
U.S. currently using those red stones, lying to But again, Japan with the hammer, the last shot advantage. So John Schuster laying the broom for his third. Tyler George, age 33, from Duluth, Minnesota.
Careful. No, line's fine. Yep.
Landsteiner and Hamilton,
All the way across that
the
center.
front end, working their brooms fairly feverishly right now.
And you can see John Schuster has them on this one right now, trying to get a little bit more curl out of this guard by Tyler. The more they sweep it at the end, Jason, the more it curls. Just trying to place the stones properly here.
And they would love to, at the very least, be able to force Japan to take just a single point with the hammer. Here is the second stone for Japan's third, Shimizu.
Trying to run this guard in and make contact with anything they can to open things up. Great shot there by the Japanese team. Total access here to these red rocks in the rings now.
Going like a 2? Yeah, we can go 2-3.
He's running anyways, right?
Yeah, we can go 2-3.
Okay.
Another peek at the action for the Japanese squad.
No way.
And as is the case in all these high-level competitions now, great part of Curling Night in America, able to listen into the conversations. It's John Schuster plots his strategy.
He's discussing the speed of the ice with his front end. Wants to know exactly how hard he has to throw it to make this guard.
And here is the first stone for the three-time Olympian for Team USA.
Last line. Whoa.
Okay, last good. Two. Steiner. Clean.
For sure, Lance.
Clean.
To the stop.
Yep.
Gotta
Clean.
go.
Yep. Hard.
Once again, trying to get the curl out of this rock.
Go. Okay.
Probably only guarded half. Shot stone looks like it's accessible with the intern if Japan so chooses.
But shooting stones only part of the equation. Pete, each team has a certain limited amount of thinking time to play their shots, 30 minutes in this 8-end game.
Yeah, and that should be plenty of time, Jason. Thinking time is when the clock only runs when the rocks are not moving. So the amount of time spent in the house contemplating the shot selection and the ice is when the clock runs. As soon as they deliver the stone, the clock stops.
And we'll see if that becomes a factor. If you have limited time, you see teams at the end of games sometimes scrambling to play their opportunities, have less time to plot their course of strategy. The skip for Japan, Yusuke Morizumi, fell in love with the sport as a child when the Olympics were held in Nagano, and then getting his brother involved, and they've been half of this Japanese men's team the last handful of years.
All the way up.
An interesting call there by Morizumi, electing to hit second shot stone in the back of the house and try and roll into the back of the forefoot for shot, as opposed to maybe making contact with that shot stone in the top of the forefoot, trying to get that out of there, open things up, and allow himself an easier shot for the save.
It's pretty straight. But I think that's our best shot because, I mean, if we get an out-turn throw, even if we flick off the inside of this, because this is his only way in. Okay. All right. So you just want to play this?
Again, Pete, the contemplation between the skip and the vice skip, Schuster and George, as they figure out what they want to do with their last stone.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, John Schuster in this case has a chance to talk to Tyler and bounce an idea or two off him, try and get his thoughts, get a feel for what they want to do, what's going to be the best shot here in this situation.
So a lot of discussion. What do you think they've come up with?
Well, it looks like they're going to play the intern tap. They're going to try and promote this shot stone closer to the button and make it even more difficult for Morizumi to draw for his single. I like this call, actually making it as difficult as he can. You can see on the outturn side here there's a small hole, a small path to the button. But if John can tap his rock closer to the button here, it'll make it very tough on Morizumi.
Weight's good.
Close.
Weight's real good.
Yeah.
Weight's really good.
Yeah. Yep. Hard. Yep. Hit room.
Rope.
Want to get as close to the guard as they can.
No, man. Yep. Steiner's hitting it.
Whoa. Yep. Really good. That'll work, Johnny.
It's a great shot. Great sweeping by the front end. Great line call by Tyler. Great throw by John Schuster.
Terrific teamwork for Team USA. The Americans lying to. Their work in the end is done. It's up to the last rock coming up for Yusuke Morozumi.
Here you can see now, once they get it by the guard, they just want to get the right amount of curl. You can see they tap it almost to the button. Both rocks are buried or half buried. And they've now forced Morozumi to make a tough draw on the first end for his single.
So John Schuster watching to see what the opposition will do to finish off this opening end. Second on the way for the Japanese skip, Yusuke Morozumi.
This is a tricky little shot in the first end for Morozumi, but his main objective here is to make sure he outcounts at least one of these stones, so he wants to get the weight real close. He's not overly disappointed. Like in this case, if he gives John Schuster 1 point, he wanted to make sure he alleviated the steal of 2.
So the U.S. with a bright beginning, a steal of 1 in the opening end, and the Americans strike first to start off curling night in America on NBCSN. With its well-earned designation as the capital of American hockey, what better place for the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame than Eveleth, Minnesota? Established in 1973, the museum enshrines the American legends of the game, and remarkably, it counts a dozen names from Eveleth itself among its enshrinees, including 1960 Olympic gold medalist John Mayasich and legendary coach Cliff Thompson. And among the recent inductees, a couple of names that fans of NBCSN's hockey coverage are sure to be familiar with. Little more than a stone's throw from the Hockey Hall, you know, a regular stone, not a 42-pound curling stone, sits Curl Misabi. Action resuming here for Japan and the United States in end number 2. And Team USA's second, Matt Hamilton, pumped with his play so far in this end, Pete.
Yeah, here you see Matt reacting to the crowd. He just brings a great energy to this team, which has a major role in their successes.
And this stone helping put us where we'll pick up the play here in end number 2. Remember, John Schuster and the Americans with a steal of 1 in the opening end to take the lead in this 8-end game. As we begin the competition, the top nation in the men's, women's, and mixed doubles competition takes home the American Cup. Tyler George, the third for the U.S. with the stone in this end. Remember, after giving up the point to Team USA, Japan has the hammer again here in end 2.
And as we can see here, most of the play is around this center guard, and all of it in the forefoot. Team USA trying to get one frozen on here. Didn't curl quite enough for Ty. You can see Japan has a chance now to loosen this one up and lie 2. Big opportunity there for Tyler to get one in there frozen properly and set up the steal for the USA team.
Japan, 6th at last year's World Championships, 5th in 2014. And this group, again, has been the primary Japanese squad for the past handful of years. First stone of the second end for the third, Shimizu.
You can hear they said tight line. They're going hard for the line to get it by the guard. Now they're going for distance, trying to get it to the button, trying to get second shot. Not quite far enough, but nevertheless, a good stone for the Japanese team. Really kind of controls that scoring area.
Always intriguing to hear a foreign country communicate in their own language and then intersperse some English in there as well.
I think if you take that hole away, he doesn't have much here.
I know, but he ever ends up tapping this and moving it off. We're pretty.
You kind of have to get into the H to cut that angle off, right?
What's that?
You kind of have to get into the H to cut the angle off.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to get all the way in here. Right.
And John Schuster having a discussion right now with Tyler George. And the Redstones for Team USA. And shot rock for the moment.
10 seconds, John. 5, 4, 5.
So they've played several shots down this exact path in the ice. They should have a real good idea of how much it's going to curl with the right weight.
Hard! 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 Still by! Go, lads! Gotta go! Hard! Go, go, go! Hard!
Ticking the guard.
Not exactly what they were hoping for, but didn't move the guard enough to do any damage. They didn't create a hole between the two Redstones. Still forcing Japan to come around the other way, or they could potentially clear the front here and make scoring a little bit easier on themselves.
See what's in store for Shimizu's second of this second end.
Pretty good result there for the Japanese team. You can see they did move their second shot in, removing the red U.S. stone. Japan now lies 2. And the one rock that's really helping the Japanese team is that red U.S. stone in the back of the forefoot. You can see there's a yellow one frozen on it.
So Pete, give us a sense of what the brain trust here of the United States is going to try to accomplish with this next shot.
Well, Team USA is in a little bit of trouble here, Jason. They're trying to figure out a way to limit the damage. They want to make sure that Japan doesn't score more than 2 points. They're just trying to figure out which rock they should move, which gives them the best chance to do that.
Like our rock, pretty tough to get. We can get there. If I'm going back. Loosen this off.
And now Matt Hamilton has come and joined the conversation.
Let's do board.
And again, as much as scoring is helpful, limiting damage at time is equally as critical.
Yeah, game management is very, very important, and that's John Schuster's job primarily, is to make sure that they keep themselves in a position where they score when they need to, and when the other team has the hammer in this situation, they limit the scoring, maybe try and force one. In this case, they're trying to limit them to 2. So they're still, even with John in the hack, they're still talking about what's the best option. They've elected to hit this top yellow stone and roll into the middle. Trying to decide if they should try and freeze on that yellow, but primarily trying to choke off the middle and limit the chance for the Japanese to get 3.
So the planning there, what about the execution?
It overcurled on them a little bit. John's not real happy, but Japan's got to make a good shot to get another one in there into position. And that red stone that John just threw is kind of blocking the way to the forefoot.
So now Japan, which we alluded to at the top of the telecast, this group has never beaten John Schuster in the Battle of the Skips. Yusuke Morozumi winless in 5 attempts against John Schuster and his team. Can he change the tide? Opportunity for Japan to capitalize with the hammer here in the second end and take an early lead.
Here we can see right at the end they switch from the in-turn to the out-turn. I think that's a better call. It's a better way for them to get one to the right spot in the forefoot. It's a real tight hole with the in-turn down the middle.
So Yusuke Morozumi leaving the hack, releasing the stone. We'll see if his front end can put it where he wants.
Now a different path there. Since they threw the out turn, that's a spot they hadn't seen with that kind of weight. They weren't exactly sure how it was going to run. You can see a little bit of mistake there. They just rubbed the guard. The rock didn't curl quite as much as they wanted. And kind of rattles all these rocks around a little bit.
A stunned kind of look from the front end as they thought it had cleared the guard. Instead, blasted out to the side, and now the U.S. looking at its opportunity here again to limit damage in its final stone in the second end.
It looks like John's going to elect to hit this top yellow stone. The good news for the Japanese team is that red rock in the back of the forefoot is still saving their second shot. They should have a pretty good chance for two when this is all over here.
John Schuster, the 3 Olympic appearances, 5 U.S. national titles as well. Again, you saw that red stone in the back frozen and nowhere for that one yellow stone still left in the house to go.
Yeah, it didn't really move. John hit it pretty hard. It didn't really move.
And now Japan with the hammer in pretty good position to get its deuce.
A little bit of a tricky draw here, Jason. They have to draw the button, but they can't come down and move their own stone, or they'll tap it out a shot rock and only get one. So the speed has to be judged properly. Make sure they get it to the button, but probably not much past the tee line.
Yusuke Morozumi should have a pretty good feel. Did win the draw to the button to get hammer to start off this game.
That's right, and at this point in the game, the speed of the ice should still be relatively similar to how it was in the shootout or in the draw to the button. A little later in the game, the ice may start to slow just a little bit. But he should be relatively comfortable with this situation right now.
Looked comfortable upon release. Let's see about the finish.
You can hear the front end chatting with each other just to make sure they get the speed right.
It's good enough for Japan to get its 2. The Japanese never beating this American team, trying to change that. Japanese up 2-1 after 2 on NBCSN Curling Night. The U.S. trailing after 2 ends to Japan, but the American faithful happy thanks to early play here in the third end, again from the U.S.'s Matt Hamilton.
Yeah, Matt throws a nice quiet weight double here to help get the U.S. out of a little trouble. He rolls partway under the corner guard. You can see he removes both yellow stones. Things are looking better.
The U.S. with a steal of 1 in the opening end. Japan got 2 with hammer in the second. And now the U.S. with that last shot advantage here in the third. And the opening stone for the U.S. third, Tyler George, here in this end.
A great opportunity for Ty here. He has a chance to just throw this rock around the 2 corner guards. Really a great chance to set up the score, too.
Start working it forward here now. Finish deep. Yep, all the way back. Go. All the way back. All the way back.
Going hard now for line to try and get a little more curl, a little more finish out of this stone.
So the front end working back after expending some energy to put it in the right spot. And we'll see how Japan goes about countering. The 27-year-old Tetsuro Shimizu, whether you're from the U.S. or Canada or elsewhere in the globe, learning the game, this Japanese player from family. Dad introduced him to the sport in elementary school, and his sister Emmy has played for some big events for the women's team for Japan over the years.
Nice example of weight control there by the Japanese. They had to throw it just hard enough to remove the American stone, but soft enough to get the proper amount of curl. You can see here now it's wide open for Tai to hit and roll back under those corner cards.
Here's the second for the U.S. third. Speaking of sister success in the sport, Tyler's sister Courtney, a 2006 Olympian for Team USA. Their parents used to run the Duluth Curling Club, getting that family into the sport. Pretty straightaway stuff there for Team USA.
Yeah, a good result. You hear John apologize to Tai. They overswept it just a little bit, but nevertheless, they've rolled the inside edge, undercover. They're going hard to get a little bit of roll out of the shooter. Didn't go quite as far under there as they would have liked. I think the Japanese can get to this rock now.
To Tyler George. Thought it might be even a little bit better than it turned out, but still the U.S. in a good spot here to rebound after losing the lead in the last end.
I got half.
And the skip for the Japanese side. Yusuke Morozumi.
So you can see about half a stone here. So a nice quiet weight. Threw it a little harder than Tai did, and you can see it didn't curl as much as they needed it to.
And it didn't hit. The miss for Japan. So now a huge opportunity magnified in importance here for John Schuster. Right now discussing how they can maximize their potential here.
Yeah, they got a great chance for two here with Hammer. Have a 2-on-1 situation where the USA has 2 stones left. To the Japanese 1.
Well, that's what we're saying. If we make it too good,
Force him into playing the shot to steal if we make that perfect.
But if you play around, what's he throwing?
the short run, which is fine. He's running at least. I think we come around.
I agree.
think he's right.
I agree.
You're right. If we make that really good and he makes one really good.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
we got it.
we're good.
Yep.
That should be plenty of ice. I mean, edge 8 only goes just to the center line, so that should be plenty.
John?
What?
And if you're relatively new to the sport of curling, Pete, the discussion process here, trying to figure out if we do A, Japan does what next to try to set yourself up in best position.
Yeah, and that's a constant in the game of curling is what do you make and then what does that leave your opponent? It's very important as far as shot selection and strategy and game setup. And here you see that they've elected to go around the center guard, leaving the Japanese the run back. So they know that the Japanese can throw the run back and run their own stone into this rock, but they're okay with it. I think they have to be careful where they put this exactly. They could leave some sort of a double for the Japanese.
Line's good still. Got
Room! There's even room! Got a barrier jump! Whoa!
Whoa, tons of room.
Whoa!
So they lay off the brooms for the moment.
Yep.
Hard, let's go!
Hard.
That was curling, that's kind of
Pretty much perfect weight there, but didn't curl enough, and looks like it's wide open.
It took like a weird fade, like 2/3 of the way down, and just stopped curling, went the other direction.
My line's been doing that every shot.
Here the post-shot evaluation there for Team USA. Didn't do exactly what they had hoped for. But again, still enough. Japan down to its final rock of this end, and then John Schuster and the U.S. have one more.
Looks like there might even be an opportunity for the Japanese to roll under the guard here. But they have to make sure they get clear of the guard and make contact with that USA stone in the house. They don't want to give up 3 here in the third.
And that would be especially huge when you consider we're playing an 8-end game here in the Curling Night in America format.
That's right, Jason. They're always trying to get to the point in the game where you maybe have a 2-point lead or a close game with the hammer down the stretch. What we talked about earlier is game management. Morozumi wants to make sure he at least kills this stone.
Let me just control weight off the edge. Should be plenty. Just on the edge. On the edge.
So mission accomplished there for Japan, but still the U.S. has a relatively simple shot here to pick up the 2.
Yep, very routine, out turn, nose hit for 2.
Be really careful of this. But the second half, just control.
In year number 2 for John Schuster with this current team and his group of teammates. The experience together, the squad just missed having an opportunity to play for a medal. At last year's World Championships, lost a gut-wrencher in the tiebreaker with Finland, missed the playoffs, and settled for 5th position.
Control. Come on, Johnny.
And relatively workmanlike 2 for the U.S. And the Americans vaulting back in front. 3-2 after 3. As Team USA holds the lead against Japan on the opening night of NBCSN Curling Night. Evelyn, Minnesota in the Mesabi Range, hence Curl Mesabi, this 8-sheet facility built in 1998, hosting NBCSN Curling Night in America. Our halftime score, the same as it was after 3 ends, 3-2, because we had a blank 4th end. Pete?
A great conversation here between Tyler and John. They have a couple options here. They could try and force Japan to take 1. And they decide to peel the guard. Here you can see Ty takes the corner guard off. And being so late in the end, Japan decides there's not much left to do here. We're just gonna trade hits, blank the end, take it to the 5th.
And Japan, by keeping things simple, with no scoring, a blank end means the Japanese keep the hammer when play resumes in the 5th end, and in an 8-end game, critical of the start of the second half of this overall game. So Team USA with the lead here in this men's battle. And the overall competition, let's take a peek at some of the other scores from the action going on in this opening draw. In mixed doubles, Scotland up 5-3 at the halfway point against Japan. The Scottish men trailing China 5-3 halfway through. And in women's play, Scotland with the upper edge on China 4-3. As far as Team USA, its opening match against the women of Japan, Jamie Sinclair and the United States, able to get 1 on the board, 1-1 after 2, but the Japanese, Pete, back-to-back singles.
Yeah, a big steal for the Japanese. Anytime you can steal one from your opponent, it helps you get control of the game. And here you can see Japan with a 3-1 lead at the break.
The other American squad in this competition will meet next week on Curling Night in America, the young mixed doubles tandem of Corey Dropkin and Sarah Anderson.
These players have played this format for a couple of years. You know, with a team like Corey and Sarah, you know, they've got a head start on the rest of the field right now.
Sarah and I have been great friends since we were little, so I'd say we know each other in and out pretty well, and that's probably an advantage for us against other mixed double teams.
I think a huge strength is our communication and that we have similar strategies, and we have a very good understanding of each other with what we want to get out of the ends and with our type of style of curling, and it just meshes very well.
So a look at that young duo for Team USA. We'll see them next week, January 15th, 10 o'clock Eastern. The United States against Team Japan in mixed doubles. Coming up here on NBCSN Curling Night. Pete, this mixed doubles format new, it's coming to the next Olympics, and it's a little bit different than what we normally see.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting differences between mixed doubles and the conventional game. first of all, there's only 2 players, which means less communication amongst the team, and the sweeping is much different. And only 5 stones are thrown as opposed to 8. So the players have really had to figure out how to play this game a little differently than the conventional game of curling.
Well, Curl Masabi featuring some of the world's best curlers taking their top shots. Downtown Eveleth, meantime, has its own vaunted venue featuring shooting and scoring. Better known to the locals as the Hip, the Eveleth Hippodrome has served as the epicenter of the town's obsession with hockey since 1921. It's not only the town's primary hockey spot, it's a veritable shrine to one of the most concentrated pockets of hockey talent in the history of the sport. Among the countless trophies, artifacts, and tributes to the great players and teams that have skated on this ice, it's the very first Minnesota High School Hockey State Championship trophy won by, who else, Eveleth, 70 years ago this year. And for those of you keeping track at home, they went on to win 4 of the next 6. From one winter sport to another, NBCSN's Curling Night in America returns after this. Game 1 of Season 2 of NBCSN Curling Night halfway through. The U.S. up 3-2 on Japan at the break. Let's check in with Tanith White.
All right, guys, I talked to Team USA's head coach, Phil Drobnik. He says it's a battle of rock positions at this stage. He likes the way the tone was set, stealing the one in the first end, but looking forward, they want to force one in the 5th end to make sure they have the hammer at the end.
Tanith, thanks. Jason Knapp here with Pete Fenson, John Schuster, and the United States. Things going according to plan so far for Team USA.
Yeah, things look pretty good. I think they have to be relatively happy here. They were able to get Japan to blank the 4th end, and now, like Tanith said, they're going to try and force a single and regain the hammer for the 6th.
Opening stone for John Landsnyder, the lead for Team USA. Again, John Schuster, 5-0 all-time against this Japanese skip, Yusuke Morozumi.
Why in the world did we go in 5 by 1?
And now the younger brother of the skip, Kasuke Morozumi, starting things off for Team Japan. Is there a mental game here, Pete, when you haven't beaten somebody before to try to kind of solve that problem of getting past a certain side?
Well, there can be if you're aware of it. You know, it's important for Morozumi, if he knows that he hasn't beaten Schuster in that many tries, to just concentrate on the task at hand here today and try and play the game the best that he can. It's important that he doesn't let Johnny get into his head.
Again, keeping that hammer here in the 5th. You heard that strategy talk. See if the U.S. can get the force, get the hammer back for the key ends down the stretch.
Probably need a little tap.
Wide away.
Yep, line, yep.
7.
Hard.
Second from Landsnyder here in the 5th.
7.
Weight's good.
Oh, off, man.
Trying to tap the first one straight back.
Go. Hard.
If they do that, this one will not be in the rings, and Japan won't be able to hit it, and it will guard this one in the house.
Well, an engineer in his day job, John Landsteiner, engineering a solid shot there. His stone's through here in the 5th.
Does that come down or what?
And a view from above at the 2nd for Kasuke Morozumi.
Interesting call here by the Japanese. They threw the corner guard, which says they're going to try and score in this end, and now they're going around the center. In my opinion, they're playing right into John Schuster's hand, where he can kind of clog up the middle and try and force a steal here, or try and force Japan to take 1 point here in the 5th end.
Almost solid, John.
Hack. That's fine too. Nice hack, Matt.
Yeah.
And a little hand signal in case he can't hear you completely at the other end to talk about the weight they want to throw the stone.
Yeah, a lot of times, especially on tour, you know, these events are played in arenas where or curling clubs where there's lots of games going on at one time, a lot of noise, so teams have to develop signals, you know, to tell each other how hard to throw the rock.
Weight's good.
Matt Hamilton resplendent in those blue sneaks, and letting go his first stone of this end.
John Schuster asked for hack weight. Looks like Matt might be just a little bit lighter than that, therefore it over-curled.
Same thing as I did the first time I threw that same shot.
Pretty much, yep.
No, I'm just sliding tight and letting it go tight.
That's pretty soft, dude. That's not hack. Wasn't hack. It's a full sweep the whole way down.
Okay, maybe it's
a little soft. It's okay. Yep. Maybe.
So some friendly chatter as the execution was not quite there for Team USA.
Yeah, they're just establishing, you know, in their minds between the two of them, you know, what the ice is doing, so they have to know how hard it was thrown and the details of the shot.
And the next shot here from Yamaguchi for Japan.
Japan attempting the double here to lie two.
And not quite. So Japan lies one. Action continues in a moment. NBCSN Curling Night in America is being brought to you by the United States Olympic Committee. Get the latest Team USA gear and support our athletes at the same time at teamusashop.com. And by Cryomax 8-Hour Cold Packs, proud sponsor of the USA Curling National Team. The action continuing from Curl Masabi in Eveleth, Minnesota on NBCSN Curling Night. Tyler George. See his shooting numbers so far halfway through this opening match for Team USA against Japan.
87% for Ty. That's a good, solid number at third.
He was third best among all thirds, shooting percentage-wise at last year's World Championships. And Team USA finishing fifth in Halifax, Canada a year ago. Critical point of this 8-end game, and house pretty wide open right now for Team Japan.
Yeah, you can see here they're just going to try and split the house with Tyler's rollout on that last shot. A lot of room for Japan to draw to. Just trying to draw the open side, spread their rocks out, and keep their deuce going. They've got a potential chance to score two here.
I mean, we could try to, we can roll over
try to
there.
get it all the way over there, yeah.
I mean, the only other thing is to go.
I think you give yourself a better chance getting over here.
Yeah,
he makes that double
behind
ours.
Field. Normal.
So a relatively simple decision, it seems, for Team USA.
Yeah, John and Ty were just discussing the options if they did have any. They elected to throw this peel weight. So John's going to throw it pretty hard. Going to try and roll across the rings and get the two rocks closer together, get over near that yellow rock on the left-hand side of the screen.
John Schuster's numbers after 4 ends when Team USA beat Japan in round-robin play at last year's World Championships. The last meeting, 8-6 was the score. Again, that was a 10-end game.
Pretty good result there. He was able to roll his shooter at least onto the other half of the sheet. So they're only a few feet apart now. If Japan happens to hit this redstone on the nose, there will be a double available for John on his last one.
And continuing to think its way through the game, Team USA with the lead, trying to get on the board, earn a team point in the overall competition at the U.S. Grand Prix, vying for the American Cup here on NBCSN Curling Night. And 53.6% after 4 ends. Those are not the shooting numbers that any skip wants to see.
No, that's for sure, Jason. It's amazing that he can be, at this point in the game, being outshot by that many in this close of a game. And with an opportunity here to take the lead, he makes a good shot here. You can see he rolled that over. It's just basically a pocket almost for John. A pretty straightforward double. Morozumi wanted to roll the rock that far the other direction and spread his stones out.
Okay, I didn't even look at it.
It's supernatural right now.
Isn't that, yeah, I mean, it's an inch higher and that close. So
And virtually no discussion and barely a glance at the task at hand for John Schuster.
Yeah, pretty simple shot here. All he has to do is make sure he hits this just a little bit high.
Yep.
Clean.
Yep. Hard.
Clean. Yep.
Clean.
Sounds like it's made right out of his hand.
Perfect work there for Team USA, line 2. And now the onus on Japan to take its 1.
Yeah, that was a big opportunity missed by Team Japan. They had a chance to pick up a big 2 points here, but have to settle for a single.
U.S. front end, including Matt Hamilton, liking that as their skip delivers that double takeout. Final stone here, and Japan just needs to get a point and salvage something from this end.
Pretty routine draw for Morozumi. Just has to throw it out to the sweepers here and let him judge the weight right to the tee line.
The sweepers doing their thing, and that'll slide in position for Japan to get its 1. So the Japanese tie the score, but the U.S. takes that little mini victory, and the Americans have the hammer when we come back. NBCSN Curling Night in America continues from Curl Misabi in Eveleth, Minnesota, about a 3-hour ride north of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Japan forced into taking 1 in the 5th end, so the U.S. tied up with the Japanese, but having hammer here in the 6th of this 8-end game. Competition on the adjoining sheets of ice again. Action in men's, women's, and mixed doubles here in Curling Night in America. You'll see all of that in the coming weeks here on NBCSN. 3 stones left here for each team in this end, Pete.
Ooh, that's a nice little double by the Japanese. You can see they just touched a piece of that first stone and rolled dead under the center guard and lined their 2 rocks up onto that stone of Team USA's. We weren't able to get this rock out. So I think for John and team, they want to try and make that one good somehow, if they can.
Shot from Tyler George, his second stone here in this end.
Line's good. 3, 4. Hard then. Hard. Line's really good.
And the U.S. has the hammer, but seemingly trailing here, at least strategy-wise.
Yeah, with that little double by the Japanese team, you know, it really sets things up good for them. Puts a little bit extra pressure on Team USA. Doesn't look like he can see the entire rock. I think if he can get just hit and roll just half under the guard or even a corner under the guard, it really chokes off most of the button. It keeps the yellow stones lined up onto that red one.
This Japanese team continuing to raise its profile in the sport of curling. 6th at the World Championships last year, 5th in 2014. didn't qualify for the Sochi Olympics, the only time they took part in the Olympic Games in 1998 in Nagano. And again, that's when the Morozumi brothers really fell in love with the sport.
Just nice, soft, controllable weight here by the Japanese. Didn't work out exactly the way they wanted. Maybe he was a little tight on the line when he let it go. You can see it over curled and hit the guard.
And as we'll discuss when we hear the Chinese and Japanese teams throughout this competitions, sit and woe are unique terms for any country.
That's right, Jason. You always hear a little bit of verbiage with these teams, even though they don't speak English most of the time. A few of those words will spill out on occasion. John trying to make the double there, and just a little bit wide on release. As he just drove it through the hole.
U.S. won in the first. Japan countered with a deuce in the second. The U.S. got 2 on the board in the third. Blank fourth end. A force of 1 by the U.S. to Japan. 3-3 the score here. Last stone for Japan in a 6th end of an 8-end game.
The Japanese are trying to kill this American stone in the back of the forefoot. Trying to force Team USA to take 1 point. Perfectly executed there. You can see they've got one mostly buried under the center guard. Good sweeping here to get it by that front guard.
Yeah, the front end liking it.
So 2 options here for John Schuster. He can draw the forefoot for the single, but due to the position of that yellow stone on the top of the forefoot, he really can't see much of the button. So he's electing to throw the in-turn. Sounds like board weight hit and roll in for 1.
Just board. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Just board. Whoa. Whoa. No, Handy, no.
Sounds like the weight's good. They need to get a little curl out of it here for the roll.
That's good enough. Delicate positioning for the U.S., but it's a force of 1 from Japan. The U.S. takes the lead.
Nice execution here by John Schuster. Nice controlled board weight. The little roll to the button for the single.
You'd love to get your 2 with hammer, but the U.S. will settle for 1. John Schuster and the United States go back on top by a single point. This is NBCSN Curling Night in America on NBCSN. The action heating up at the end of opening night of NBCSN Curling Night in America. The U.S. and Japan, slim 1-point lead for the U.S., but here at N7, Pete, the plot thickening.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. With the 1-point lead and a center guard in play here, Team USA is trying to force a score in the 7th end, preferably a score of 1 for Japan. So here we can see them maneuvering, trying to get good rock position right up the middle of the sheet.
And with that traffic jam line of rocks, the U.S. going through its thought process here.
No, I know, that's what I said. We happen to freeze it here, and he makes a double, like, all set.
And 4 mines, at least for the moment, not enough. John Schuster wants to talk about it, and they'll bring in Coach Phil Drobnik for another opinion.
doesn't have much choice but to either regard or freeze.
Okay.
What are you guys thinking?
No, I'm thinking the same. I'm thinking anything. If we give up 2, it's not that bad.
Anything that gets rid of this
We can't
guard,
give up 3.
Can't give up 3. The key is to make sure we don't give up 3. And if we get a steal out of the deal, it's great.
That red rock's not going anywhere, so 3 is pretty much out of the picture right now.
The only way they can get 3 is if we try to play a draw on there somehow.
Okay. All right.
So
sounds good.
Run
As
the
long
red
as this
one right
rock's
out.
gone, try to run it in, but if it's gone, it's good.
May as well throw an
So
out
you're
turn and
going
just
to
put it on
run
the
it
center
into
of
the
rock.
2 yellows,
That out
right?
turn shouldn't move.
What? Run it into the 2 yellows.
Yeah, we're running dead on the nose should make it.
That'd be perfect.
It's just a hair high.
You're trying to go yellow off that way, right?
Yeah, this to here.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So the
It's
U.S.
really
Pete
close
using
to
its
no.
one
Just that-
timeout,
yeah.
it's allotted in every game and getting some reinforcement on their decision.
Yeah, usually when there's only one timeout
make it the other way
available,
too, right?
it's important to
So-
kind of wait until a critical point in the game. And the team thought, well, this is a great time to call Phil out and get his thoughts. They assessed, the potential risk and what could happen, and they decided they're going to run this rock in, try and remove at least one of these Japanese stones.
Yep. Hard! Right to it! Roll it!
That actually cuts and draw off by doing it. So.
Now, John Schuster very vocal. They knock out that guard
Except for he gets a draw, but that's fine.
and willing to accept that at this point.
Yeah, they've got this red rock you can see right in the top of the forefoot that's almost frozen on the Japanese stone. So that really reduces the risk here for Team USA.
Again, they were concerned of not giving up a 3-point end here to Japan, willing to concede a 2 and get the hammer back and fight on in the final end.
Yeah, the thought there is even if they give up 2, they're 1 down playing the last end, but they do have the hammer. Oftentimes, that's good enough to win the game, get the 2 points with the hammer in the last end.
Yeah, if I stick this top yellow one or just peel it straight off, they're drawing for 3, right?
So the conversation continues for Team USA as they get ready for their final stone coming up. Let's see what Japan can come up with.
Well, if you roll
I mean,
the
if you're
shooter
doing
up,
dead nose,
if
I'd
you roll
say
the
if you just
shooter
roll a
over
little bit,
enough
man.
to open up that red rock, then that one's got to be gone.
So Tyler and John trying to figure out what they're going to do with the last one based on where the Japanese team's going here on Morizumi's first. You see they're by the guard here by a mile. Really need this one to curl so they can get it partially under cover at least. Looks like that's just about wide open. Probably accessible for John on the intern side if he so chooses.
Or, I mean, we either hit and roll.
So we saw Team Japan tick a guard earlier on. That time, a lot more breathing room to get around there. Is that in part due to ice changing latter stage of this game?
Well, there can be a lot of factors involved there. It could be the ice has changed. Maybe they got to a new piece of ice that they haven't played on yet. They got a little bit further out into the rings, and they didn't know exactly how much it was going to curl. So things that they always have to manage throughout the course of any game.
I know. Not quite all of it. Let's just draw.
Can you get to that line with a draw the way that his ran?
Yeah, we can get here. If we're close to our rock, it should go in here, no problem. It's right there. So I don't think we're gonna make a shot easier either. So
It's a heavy draw, huh?
Right there. Yeah. He gave his a huge stab out, Ty. I'm not gonna do. I'll throw mine good.
So John Schuster seemingly convinced that's the shot. Tyler George maybe not so certain at this point, but Team USA looks like it's going for the draw.
Yeah, Ty's just asking John, can we really get one to go in there, because he watched the Japanese stone come down the sheet, obviously didn't curl enough. I think maybe he's questioning if the shot's makeable. John told him yes, no problem. He looked at the way Morizumi threw his, said he gave it a big stab outward, which means it's just going to run down the sheet and not curl as much as it needs to.
7, 8.
John said, I'll throw mine good.
7,
See where it goes.
6.
Ham, you. For sure, you.
Hammy. Always you, Hammy. No line.
Whoa, just hammer. Hammer, you can go, not
All right,
laugh.
we can go at the end yet.
Yep.
Hard! Yep! Hard! Hard! Go! Yep! Hard! Whoa!
John.
So that one also didn't curl as much as they
I just
thought.
slid out there, guys. Sorry, guys.
Now you hear John say he slid a little wide too, so
Tell you I'm not gonna do it, then I
tricky little spot in the ice there.
I don't know if the hit could hit.
Here's another look at John Schuster leaving the hack.
さっきの滑ってるところより 0.5 秒ぐらい止まるぐらい。
That's wrong. We've been back hard.
ほぼ一緒でいいと思う。
Good listen in at the call there, working on each of the members of the front end to sweep at the appropriate time to try to get it where they needed to go.
That's right, trying to get it to curl a little bit more with the sweeping, trying to sweep the high side of the stone to get it to go in there just a little bit more.
So now Japan already lying one, and Morozumi trying to make it a fruitful 2 in this end for Japan to vault the Japanese into the lead.
Needs to be a pretty good draw. It's got to be into the 4 foot, about half a rock, maybe a little bit more.
Go, Ty, go!
You got a chance,
Go, Ty, go!
Hard, Ty, go!
Tyler George trying to sweep it out through the back, but not enough. Good enough for Japan to get its 2 and reclaim the lead. The U.S. trailing, but with hammer in the final end. Intrigue on opening night of NBCSN Curling Night. The United States down 1 with hammer, but with just one end of regulation remaining. A look at some of the other competition and scores in this opening draw. Remember, the overall team competition, a win worth 1 point. The nation with the most points when we're through wins the American Cup. With more on our featured match, let's check in ice side with Tannen.
All right, guys, we talked early about the strategy of making sure the U.S. team had the hammer in the 8th, and indeed it is going as planned at this point. However, it's worth remembering that in this format, there are no extra ends. So in some cases, not having the hammer may still work out in their favor, but in this case, everything is running smoothly as planned.
Tannen, thanks. If we are tied at the end of this final 8th end of regulation, it will be a draw to the button for each team to decide the winner.
Yeah, that's right. It's very straightforward, and for John Schuster, he has to make sure that he leaves himself a relatively simple shot to score here in the last end. So if it has to go, worst case scenario, to the draw to the button, they have a great chance to win the game.
So you saw the numbers, over 90% for the lead for Team Japan. John Landsteiner not as efficient so far, but the chance to set the tone here for the Americans in this final end.
I need some weight, huh?
Right here.
Looks like you gotta go.
Matt, take the rock.
So here we see Team USA is establishing a corner guard. They're going to try and set up a potential score or 2 to win the game now. But at some point in the end, they'll have to assess how things are looking, if it's going their way, or if they have to bail and leave John a shot for the tie.
So each team with 1 in play to this juncture. And John Schuster, 5-0 all time against Yusuke Morozumi of Japan. At last meeting at last year's World Championships, so the Japanese hoping to get their first win against John Schuster here on U.S. ice. Good view up close of the brooming of the front end for Japan.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. You can see they do a good job of getting their upper body weight over the broom head, which creates a lot of pressure on the ice surface, which helps to be more effective in carrying those stones proper distances.
In case we can get to it, we can roll under the corner.
I think this, I'm going to get to this pretty easy at inside anyways. Okay. Oh, you're talking, just leave it open. All right.
If it was on that side, if we play into
Fair
it,
enough.
roll into the corner.
Okay.
One in the house for Japan. John Schuster listening to the thoughts of his lead, John Landsteiner, his second rock of this final end of regulation.
Line's good.
Line's good. No bounce.
6. A lot of room, actually. 5. Tie.
Tie. Your rock. Tie. Tie your rock.
Tie.
Looks pretty close anyways. Take a look.
Easy.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Want to just freeze it on here, trying not to bounce off the yellow.
Good shot, buddy.
Perfect angle, attaboy.
Well done for Team USA.
Nice shot.
So that's a great example of how critical the weight judgment is for the sweepers. They wanted to make sure they got down to the face of that yellow stone, but they didn't want to bounce off it to maintain control of this scoring area in the top of the forefoot.
Yamaguchi's performance in the mid-80s percentage-wise, his shooting in this opening game of the event for Team Japan.
Almost like a nose hit.
What's that?
If you pocket him, you can roll up to another.
The Team USA
I mean,
1 to tie, 2 to win, and Japan trying to make things as difficult as it can without the hammer.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
A tricky situation for the Japanese team here. 1 up without the hammer, so they have to be very careful not to give Team USA something simple maybe for the win. They have to really monitor where all these rocks are positioned. That's very important here in the scoring in this end.
Matt Hamilton, the second for Team USA.
Hard, tie, go. Hard, go, let's go, go.
Go, Ty, go.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Matt Hamilton there just trying to open things up down the middle a little bit, and you can see now he made a little bit more room right down around the center line.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna start down.
Got the gum chewing, thoughts working. And Matt Hamilton, a unique influence on this American team, feeling good despite trailing here with he and his American counterparts. Second for Yamaguchi here in the 8th end.
I think the rocks were just dead. You can throw it harder, I know that.
There we go, just putting the guard back, trying to protect those rocks in the house. And
Might be able to make that through the hole.
unlike what the U.S. team's trying to do, they're trying to plug the middle up and force play into the middle.
Sure. You make it through the hole, we're for sure moving this rock. So.
Okay.
Because they're pretty much locked.
I think I like hack.
Okay.
Both sides of center.
Reckon that if anything though.
Right.
Yeah, I'm playing it tight.
Whoa. I'm just like maybe another inch.
What?
I'm gonna be sure hack.
Sure.
Just hack.
Yep. Gotta go. Hard.
You really gotta go to roll it.
Hurry, Lancer, go.
Hard.
Tie, any roll. Jeez.
All right.
I mean, I know I was tight. That was
They were on that one early.
Yeah, not sure about the throw there, but Matt had asked for an extra inch of ice when he was in the hack. You heard John say he was playing it tight. They did definitely want to make sure if they didn't make it through the hole, they touched the center guard, but they definitely didn't want to be that heavy on the nose.
No, I know that.
So now Japan, its next stones in the hands of their third, Tetsuro Shimizu.
So around the guard they come here. It'd be real good for Japan if they could come down and just loosen up that freeze a little bit. Just put another guard on, so now there's 2 center guards.
Or we can try this
A little
too.
tougher for Team USA to make a double peel and really open things up.
I don't really like running this one.
Yeah. Not yet.
No.
It's gonna be there in a second. I mean, I catch it really good, they all three go too.
Right.
But even just, dead on is good. So.
For the nose, yeah.
The U.S. down one. Last end with hammer. John Schuster kind of knows he has the opportunity potentially to draw at the end 4-1 in the tie, but still trying to set the table for that 2.
There's a fine line here in this situation between going for the win and making sure that you have something for the tie. So John has to manage that and his maybe want to try and go for the win. He has to make sure that he leaves himself something here for the tie.
Here's the offering from Tyler George.
Hard! 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 Right to it! Right to it!
Oh, that bad luck. Are you kidding me? That's fucking terrible luck.
Oh, that's bad luck. He ran 2 rocks about 15 feet or more. Leaves the center guard. You can see that sits right there. Runs the Japanese stone in and just picks his own stone off the top of the 4-foot and kicks it out of the house.
It looked good for so long.
On the face of the first stone that they hit is just fractions of an inch to make a big difference in the result of that shot.
42-pound stones don't always quite go the way you want them, even at the highest level of competition. So now Japan again up 1, trying to protect as much as they can this tenuous advantage and maybe trying to break through against the Americans for the first time.
Japanese are trying to come off one wide out on the sheet ice here to roll into the middle to get a second rock under cover. Nicely done.
I think this one you stick
That accomplishes
line,
2
you come
things
back here
actually.
and
It
make
takes
it
that shot
all
away
out.
from John Schuster and
You got it
company, so
all
they
the
can't
way
play it
back.
later in the end as a
I
bailout
don't
if they
think
need
we
it.
want to throw it great, just normal. Just normal and you're hitting it. We got lots of time.
Japanese
Inside
looking
nose.
loose and relaxed down the stretch here in this final end against Team USA.
Oh, close. Yep. Whoa. 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 Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Whoa. Whoa. It's good. It's good. It's good. Oh. That way, Ty.
So the U.S. removing 1 of the Japanese stones, but shot rock still there for Japan.
Ty doesn't look real happy with the result there. He was hoping to hit a little bit more of that first rock and maybe roll over on top of that yellow stone on the 4-foot, but all in all, that's a pretty good result.
Funny how things can change in curling. In 2010, John Schuster met Tyler George in the finals of the U.S. Olympic qualifying tournament. Schuster won by a point to deny George that trip to the Olympics. Now the 2 paired up on this top American team for the past year plus. Only the skip stones remaining here for Japan and the U.S. Japanese looking for a breakthrough against the Americans and a good start to this overall team competition at the U.S. Grand Prix.
So after that run back by Ty, things get a little bit scarier for the Japanese. They've got to try and get one frozen in here under cover.
I don't think I can make a double though. Right, and then he guards him and doesn't make contact.
So Japan looking, but there seems like there's room to operate here for Team USA.
Yeah, things still look pretty good for John Schuster and company.
Best. Let's do that. Back line, middle 8-foot or a little less than middle.
Looks like they're going to have something for the win
Will we be shot or not?
on one side of the sheet or the other.
But it gives you the best chance still.
Okay.
Again, that fine line you talked about, wanting to win it here at the end of regulation, but not making a mistake that would cost you the opportunity to at least force a tie.
That's right. That's back to game management again, trying to decide how hard to push and still leave yourself an out.
Hack! Yep!
One, no. Steiner, go. Yep.
Trying to get to that shot rock.
Yellow back, go, buddy. Hard. Go.
All right, pretty good. ロールかドローかだね。
That's a pretty good shot. They were able to get around the guard and tap out shot rock that left the button open. There's only one yellow Japanese stone remaining in the house.
So the Americans waiting and wondering what they'll have left for their final rock coming up. And Japan putting their heads together to look to make it as difficult as possible for Team USA. While the conversation continues, we'll step aside. The conclusion of the opening night of NBCSN Curling Night. It's coming up. Two stones left of the first game of this season's NBCSN Curling Night. Jason Knapp here with 2006 Olympic bronze medalist Pete Fenson, Tanith White as well. Japan trying to protect a 1-point lead here. In the final end, the U.S. has the hammer. John Schuster will have the opportunity to get a 2 to win, maybe a 1 to tie. What can Japan do here to protect this lead and take the win?
Japan has to be very careful with their rock placement here, Jason. Knowing that John Schuster has a rock buried in the top of the 8-foot, that could be potentially the winning stone. So this rock, which is going to be drawn into the 4-foot, has to be placed perfectly.
Then we'll see if the Japanese can execute. Again, looking to break through against Team USA and start strong in this overall competition. Again, through the course of NBCSN Curling Night in America this season, you'll see action from men's, women's, and mixed doubles. One of the 4 nations with the most points from wins throughout the entire team competition takes home the overall championship trophy, the American Cup. Yusuke Morozumi. Final stone here for him in the 8th.
Go. 入っといて。4だよ。4だよ。
One of them has to stay though. Is a tricky part. You know what I mean? Like one has to stay.
They laid off it early. They seem to like it.
Yeah, they've elected to play the guard.
So you trying to want to go play across face?
Looks like it overcurled just a little bit. I think they were trying to guard a little bit more of the outside of these stones in the house.
Shooter stays, right?
Shooter just play firm.
Yeah, that's fine. Shooter then.
Firm?
Yeah, we can even play an out turn, honestly. I had a rock and a half.
Yeah, we're not playing out turn.
No, we're playing the in turn. Wait. Tyler, let's just play out turn.
Okay.
It's just nose from down here, so.
Right here?
So Japan looking on. What's John Schuster have to work with?
Well, here's a great look at what John has. It's pretty much just a nose hit. He's going to count the shooter. He's going to count the one in the top of the 8-foot that Ty ran in. He's just got to hit this a hair high, just a little bit higher than the nose.
Again, 2 for the win, 1 for the tie. And it'll be the one left in the house. Can't keep the other one in. John Schuster gets 1 for the Americans, but wasted an opportunity to end it in regulation. And here in this format, Pete, it'll come down to a simple draw to the button to decide the winner.
Yeah, a little bit of a break for the Japanese there. John had a pretty simple shot for the win, and it was overswept just a little bit, and you can see they roll the shooter and the rock they're running in, both out of the rings.
Too much on it. John Schuster can only look at what could have been to get it done in regulation. Now the opportunity for the skip for the United States to regroup here for Curling Night in America's version of overtime. It's going to be pretty simple, 1 shot apiece. One shot for a round 1 win on NBCSN Curling Night. A look back at The 8th end, the final end of regulation. The U.S. down 1. John Schuster trying to set it up to get his 2, but not quite.
Yeah, in their defense here, they're trying to make sure they stay on the high side of the nose because they have to remove that yellow stone. And they just overswept it a little bit and rolled them both off the paint.
Good news for John Schuster, the opportunity to make amends right here, right now. Again, a draw to the button for each team, and the U.S. will go first. Pete, curlers practice this shot thousands and thousands of times for some. Is it getting any easier in a spot like this where it means the win?
Well, what makes this shot difficult is the situation, Jason. It is for the win. It's one shot. It's one shot for John. It's one shot for the sweepers to get it right. It sounds like they have it dialed.
It's close, close. Stay with it.
They know the speed.
Got to curl a ton. It's there. What'd you get, Ty?
14-1. Whoa.
Right off.
Nothing. God, nothing.
Sorry, guys.
And that has slid further than John Schuster expected.
And a misjudge by the front end there too, Jason. You could hear them saying at mid-ice that the weight was good. So I think they got tricked a little bit. Maybe the ice was a little bit speedier in that track than they thought.
Heard them talk 14-1 split time there, tracking to kind of give them an idea of the pace for the rock down the ice. But now, huge opportunity here for Japan to take this win. There's a lot of room for Morozumi to better that shot from Schuster.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. He did leave a lot of room here for the Japanese team. They just need to get one close to the 4-foot here for the win now. Team USA could have made it much tougher on them by, putting their rock on the tee line.
And remember, Japan won the draw to the button to start things off to find out who would have the hammer. So maybe some positive reinforcement for the Japanese skip. He started with the perfect shot to get hammer. Can he finish it and pick up the win?
Now, an interesting fact here, too, is that Morozumi is throwing his draw in the same exact spot in the ice that John Schuster just threw his. So their teams should know exactly the speed of the ice in this track.
If it's closer than the American stone, the Japanese get the win for the first time against John Schuster in international competition for this Japanese skip.
They don't like it. That looks real heavy.
It's a lot heavy. Way heavy. And Japan blows a golden opportunity. A sigh of relief for John Schuster and Team USA. They opened the door at the end, but Japanese couldn't walk through. The Americans take the win. Back to here for the U.S. skip in a moment on NBCSN Curling Night. NBCSN Curling Night in America has been brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. See car insurance in a whole new light. And by USA Curling, where Olympic dreams begin. So the opener for the men of Team USA, it was a little bit of a sweat for John Schuster and company, but the U.S. gets it done, winning the draw to the button to win in the version of overtime here on Curling Night, 6-5. Tanith White standing by with the U.S. skip.
Okay, John, always a relief to get that first match out of the way, especially when it's a win. What do you think of your team's performance today?
It was good. We struggled a tiny bit with the ice throughout the course of the game, including in the end of that game there. But everybody came out and threw the rock good and got a good feel for the ice, so it should be fun moving forward.
Can you talk a little bit more about that last shot and the ice and how it contributed to it?
Right now, I let go of my last one, kind of trying to make sure we stayed on the outside of the rock there, and we had to be pretty close to the nose to stay, and we just kind of backed it out there, and we were kind of surprised by it, but we got to throw the draw, and we got just close enough, I guess.
Well, time now for the Team USA aptacular shot of the game. And Pete, you like this offering from Tyler George in that last end of regulation.
Yeah, this out-turn run back by Ty really is a shot that sets up the opportunity to win the game for John Schuster at the end. You can see he sticks it right underneath that guard. It's one they can't get out. Gives him a chance for two.
Download the Team USA app for up-to-the-minute news and exclusive behind-the-scenes coverage of your favorite athletes. Visit the Google Play and iTunes Store and download the Team USA app today. The U.S. only able to get the one there, but that forced the draw to the button, the version of overtime, and the U.S. able to get the win. Running down some of the other scores on this opening draw on curling night, a win in mixed doubles for Scotland, a win for the men of Scotland as well over China. The Chinese women able to dump the Scots 7-5. As for the U.S. women, led by skip Jamie Sinclair, remember they were down 3-1 when we checked in before, halfway through, and the U.S. never really able to generate much offense.
It looks like the Japanese had control of this game pretty much from the midpoint on.
5-2 is the final as the U.S. concedes in the final end. So looking at the team competition, wins for the men of Scotland and the U.S., they each get a point. For the women, China and Japan victorious in draw number 1. And in mixed doubles, the Scots take a win as well. So in the overall standings in this 4-nation competition, after 1 of 9 draws, Scotland has a pair of points and 1 each for the United States, Japan, and China. Tune in next week, January 15th, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's Team Japan squaring off against the up-and-coming team from the United States in mixed doubles, Corey Dropkin and Sarah Anderson, the television debut of the mixed doubles format. On this night, thanks for joining us. For Pete Fenson and Tanith White, this is Jason Knapp saying so long and make it an annual Friday night on this season of NBCSN Curling Night in America.